That's what I got. Really?
Hey, do you know how to work one of those?
Yes, I do.
Need the instructions.
Yeah, I already talked to Corey. I said I'd do that. I got to do this.
Speeding traffic document. Speeding. I sped all the way home. Yes, that's what I was just looking for too.
We're missing somebody, so in the absence of the mayor, we need a motion to select a presiding officer for this informal meeting. Hear a motion?
Councilman Thomas preside over the meeting.
Hear a motion in a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Let's get started. Let's get started. We'll ask Councilman Tony Bishop to lead an invocation.
May we pray. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your blessings. We thank you for watching over each and every one of us. We thank you for watching over our city workers and all of our employees, our special responders, and those about in harm's way. We ask that you be with those families that lost loved ones. Watch over and comfort them. Be with us as we talk over the business of our city. Lead us, guide us, and direct us. In your son's name.
Amen.
Pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
As was indicated, this is an informal meeting. No official action can be taken during the meeting. Obviously, Mayor Berger is not with us today. She is not ill. I will say that. She's probably cyber shopping or whatever. She is not. She is well and good. She is not with us.
Tires online?
Do what?
Find tires online?
First item on the agenda is the Basketball Hall of Fame. We have Gary French and Mike Polio with us, so we will turn the program over to Mike and Gary. If you'll come to the podium up here.
Thank you. I'm supposed to give the ugly part, which is the financial, and Gary gets all the good things. So just to tell you, in front of you are our donors. We are very, very pleased with the number of donors. And this is an estimate. Elizabethtown and Hardin County has about 45% of the total of $1.5 million. And the rest of the state has about 55%. Which, to be honest, is fair because the benefits will come to Hardin County and Elizabethtown. But it is a statewide. Like I said, we've raised nearly 1.5 million in money, pledges, and in-kind gifts. As of December 1st, all contracted pledges have been paid over the last 3 years. That's an amazing thing. People committed and they have paid, which we are very pleased with. All construction costs have been paid and they're happy and they left. So we're happy that they left. So all of it has been paid. We have received a bank loan from First Citizens for the pledges that are still coming in. And we're happy to say at this time that all bank loans have been paid in a timely manner. If not, I don't live here and Gary would be the one that they would come after. We've also paid Solid Light over $200,000 for its design work, which they are in process, which Gary will tell you. We're continuing to look for new prospects and have two major opportunities. The National Heritage Foundation, thank you all for making that a national heritage, and the Kentucky Heritage, which helped us already this year, will help us again next year, and that could be as high as $200,000. So both of those, we're holding our breath and making sure that comes in, but that's done. Also, all of that is a building fund. The operating funds, the Visitors Bureau has given us a check for $50,000, which will enable us to operate and get going until we develop our own funds. We're very pleased with that. And as Gary will talk to you about, we were able to get an employer director early next spring instead of waiting until we open and have the person walk in that day. So, but Gary will talk more about that. The bad news, I guess, is we had an oral pledge for $200,000, and the gentleman that had it has health and legal matters, big time legal matters. He got a sudden, and it is sudden, a Louis, it's sort of a Alzheimer's thing. Louis, I don't know how they pronounce the name of it, and then he got into some legal. Because he didn't know what he was doing, he did some things. So that fell through. But that was not a signed pledge. That was an oral pledge. So again, we're still 100%. There is a possibility for a cash flow problem in early spring. However, with Heritage Foundation monies and all future pledge payments, we have enough money to pay all our bills. So that pretty much wraps up where we are. And again, people of Hardin County, and when I came here 3 years ago, Hardin had me at the Rotary and they asked me to say something and I said, unbuckle. And the people of Hardin County and Elizabeth County have unbuckled, which we appreciate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Gary.
Good afternoon. I'm going to brief you, and thank you for this opportunity. We probably should have been here a year or two ago. I'm going to brief you on where we've been and where we're going with this project. And if you can think way back yonder to June of 2015, that is when we actually did the groundbreaking over here on the vacant site, when the city graciously deeded the building and the property over to the Kentucky High School Basketball Hall of Fame. And we knew at that time with that deed, we weren't ready to start construction. But what that deed did, it opened up some pledge money for us because there are some people that pledged based on us getting the property. So it gave us some cash flow going into the renovation. So from June of 15 to December of 15, we did a series of construction meetings where we were designing our renovation and trying to get our budget in control before we started the renovation. Charlie was and Ed graciously served on in our construction meetings. They've been great to partner with. In January of this year, we actually approved our budget. The construction company showed up on site mid-January, and in mid-August, they exited the site. 1st of September, Martin Flooring Company out of Louisville came down and installed a hardwood floor in the sanctuary area. That was an in-kind donation. Put a couple of layers of finish on the floor. They'll eventually, once we determine where our exhibits are going to be, come back and paint a court diagram on the floor and place a couple of logos, possibly a couple of logos on the floor, and put a couple more coats of finish. The city, part of our contract with the deeds, the city, sometime this winter, things maybe ease down a little, are going to demo the block building in the back. We think that cosmetically will make our building look more attractive and will also provide additional parking for the site back there. From a museum perspective, Solid Light Incorporated out of Louisville is designing our museum. We have been through the planning phase. We're now in a design phase, which we think within the next month or two, the design phase will be approved by us. And then we'll go into our third and final phase, which is the fabrication and installation phase. They build the designs and they install the designs in the museum. But they've been a pleasure to work with as well. As Mike said, I don't know if you saw in the paper yesterday, we put out an ad for, I think, the steering committee, which Ed serves on as well. We've titled that Chief Consulting Officer. Chief what? Oh, is it Chief Operating Officer? To me, it's a director, but you know, it's a prettier words there, I guess. But we ran the ad yesterday, and we're going to run the ad again in December on Christmas Day. What we would like is somebody locally, somebody that is connected to this community and would be connected to that site. We need a face, we need a voice for that building. Sooner the better. So we hope that sometime March/April, we'll have someone in place. Someone that's going to work with the steering committees, work with the board on making some decisions, building a business plan, and having a vision for this building. So we look forward. If we do not have a pool of good applicants, the deadline for the resumes is, I believe, the first or second week of January. I forgot what it said. We will expand our search throughout the state to see if we can find someone.
You can fill in interim?
No, I am interim. Free interim. And, but we're looking forward to getting someone hired.
Terry, did he have one anywhere other than locally?
No, sir. It was just locally. And as I said, Ron, if we don't have a good pool come 1st of January, we're going to expand that search. We hope to have somebody March or April. Kentucky Heritage Council, which donated some money, I will say I want to applaud them. Early on, I really didn't know what they were doing, but I figured it out at the end result. One thing I'm very proud of is they've preserved the church. And it's still sacred when you walk in there. And it's like, you know, they told us the flooring, the tile in the restroom, you know, they wanted to give it that church-like feeling, retain that, and they have. And everybody I brought in there really liked that. And if you ever want to go through it, give me a call and we'll come down and we'll run through it. But anything else, Mike? With that being said, I've probably taken up too much time. I want to thank the city for everything you all have done. It's been a great partnership. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your effort, and I appreciate what you do for this community. So thank you all.
Thank
You have any questions for?
Questions?
Mike, how much more money we need?
Lots. No. That's a good question. Probably about designated. For real.
Do you think that do you think when we get down to a business plan, do you think that the operation expenses, are we gonna be able to handle that just with traffic, with gate receipts and?
Once we get to the point, we're going to continue to raise some. One thing we've done, we've partnered, I want to take your time, but we have partnered with a company out of Owensboro. He did records, and he did video.
on the NFL field. But he switched into, souvenirs, merchandise.
Team IP, isn't it? The Team IP group?
I
No,
don't know.
he was affiliated with
Team
Waxworks.
something, but they've got the Derby. They've got, Boy Scouts.
They got the Kentucky High School Athletic Association.
Right.
That's probably them.
And then they got the Derby, and he is going to build us a store as part of it. Bill, going to, we think that could be a big deal. We want that to be almost a separate destination. For Christmas, you have children or grandchildren, what a great place to go. And we just, it will not just say Kentucky High School Basketball Hall of Fame. It'll have basketball and basketball pajamas and things like signed autograph stuff. He thinks we can make a lot of money. He's going to do it right. He's going to do it right. I mean, if they get it, he does the Derby. He also does, if you get PBS, when they come on and want money and they send you a shirt, he does that. So, also given us $75,000 as part of it. He's on there. So, we're really excited about that part, which answers, I think, part of your question. We're going to do it by traffic. No, we've got to be much more creative.
Gary or Mike, Gary, you mentioned the design phase would be the next phase.
We're in the design phase right now, Ron. Billy Reed, our vice chair of our board, is working with Solid Light right now as project manager, getting content development. We anticipate that being finished in the next month.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yes.
Sorry, date would be next month.
Yes.
We'd like to come and show it to you.
Yes.
We'd like to come and show you.
Let-
Sure.
We'd love to be able to go over and see.
Sure, anytime. Just give me a holler.
Okay. Any other questions? Gary, Mike, we certainly appreciate the update. I know with the work that has been done, there's been a lot of speculation around town as to, what's going to happen next and this kind of thing. So there is a lot of interest in it, and we're glad that you came and keep us informed on it.
Our target date is July 1st.
July 1st.
To open. But we do have that induction ceremony. It would be a perfect bridge.
Would you have most of your exhibits into there?
All of them.
All of them.
Well, when we open, they'll all be there.
July 1st, July 15th, whenever.
Now, we found though, that we won't have a lot of stuff. Stuff gets boring. But even if Adolph Rupp held it, I mean, how many times, what we want to do is be able to change exhibits. Not all of them, some years.
Good deal.
Sounds great. Look forward
Thank
to
you
it.
all very much.
Yes,
for
thank
the
you.
update. Thank you, Gary. Yeah. Next item on the agenda is Lakewood speeding. I put that item on the agenda at the request of Mr. Jack Gerhard, and I gave you all email I had received from him. If you've had a second to look at that, I won't spend a lot of time on it. I don't see Mr. Gerhard here. I had told him we would discuss it at this. Apparently this goes back some time. You've got the email that he sent me, and you've got email also from the police department, I think, or email that Tracy had given to us. Specifically on Lakewood Drive, in his email, he talks about the speeding, which has been a problem that he even sent, he said, to Mayor Wilmuth and Chief Schiller back in 2015. I think he's asking that we look at the possibility of putting some traffic calmers in there. And if you've been out there lately, I know after he sent this latest email, Tracy did ask, Jamie, you can come up if you would. Tracy asked that a traffic survey box be put out there, and I think one's been put out there, one's been out there.
Yes,
You
from
want to
the,
share with us what you have found out, Jamie?
sure, from the 22nd of November to the 26th, we had what we call our spy radar. It's basically just a small box that's mounted to a pole in both directions. And it was set up at Eagle Way, which is about halfway from Ring Road to the first stop sign. I don't recall the cross street there. Speed limit's 25, and during that time period, the northbound traffic, which is going from Ring Road to Pear Orchard Northwest, a total of 1,954 cars went through. 933 of those were in between 21 and 30 miles an hour. 859 were between 31 and 40 miles an hour, and the rest were either lower or more.
And that was with that traffic monitor in place?
Yes, sir, but you don't know that it's there. It's
Oh,
just a
okay.
very small, it's a small gray box
I
about
gotcha.
this big. No one would ever know that it's
Okay.
there. That's why they call it the spy radar.
Okay.
And then on southbound, there were a total of 2,600 cars. So there's about a 700 car difference between northbound and southbound traffic, which southbound is coming from Pear Orchard going to Ring Road. The cars that did between 21 and 30 miles an hour, there were 1,375, and in between 31 and 40 mile an hour, there were 867 cars. And then the majority were actually below that. There were some 337 were between 11 and 20 mile an hour during that same time frame. So there are a lot of cars speeding through there. There's no doubt. We know it's been an issue. And I didn't see the email that Chief Schiller sent you all, but I can only assume that it probably said that basically, unfortunately, we can't go sit over there all the time and write tickets. We try to address the issue when it's brought to our attention. We recently, I think over the weekend, not this past weekend, weekend before, we were over there at least 5 times, stopping cars, writing citations for it. So it's a bit of an issue.
When was that, Jamie?
Not this past weekend, the previous weekend, yes, sir.
How many tickets did you write? Do you know?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Well, it's interesting to note too,
Can't
if you're
find out.
familiar with that Lakewood, there's a 4-way stop at Silk Oak and at, Johnny, you live in, and at Quail. But it's really only 3-way traffic because the east side of that, doesn't have home. But apparently they must be blowing through those 4-way stop signs through, so.
It's a pretty good straight stretch from the first stop sign to Ring Road. It's easy enough for those vehicles to get built up to that speed. Sure.
Ed, I think Tracy had talked to you or Ed back in 2015 possibly about traffic calming devices out there. Had he discussed it with you then? Okay. Jamie, do you all have a recommendation? I had hoped that he would be here. Johnny, of course, you live in that area. Do you have a recommendation from?
My recommendation would be that something probably needs to be done. It's an issue. It's a straight stretch. That's exactly what it is. Just a long straight road, and it probably invites speeding more than anything.
And obviously,
Post more signs, but that doesn't do a whole
that
lot.
doesn't.
Just
I do see a pattern here, 700 more cars coming southbound than going northbound, which actually surprised me. I thought it would be the opposite direction. Which to me indicates that there are lots of people cutting through, coming from Pear Orchard Northwest going to Ring Road.
And obviously, you all cited with that blind radar, almost 50% of the people, 859 that exceeded,
Yes,
big time.
yes.
It is that area, you talk about those calming pumps. Is that area
Conducive to,
in one?
If you wanted to look at some things, I think you'd have to look not just at this particular street, but probably the neighborhood and how it even relates to Foxborough. Because, Lakewood isn't in the Oak Valley, Freeman Meadows area. It's not the only straight through street like that. So you don't want to do something and just push them over a block or two in that same neighborhood and stuff. We probably have to look at some things together. As we've talked about some of the traffic calming techniques, we're going to try one down in the Haycraft neighborhood next spring with that. So it's, we haven't done a lot in residential areas. I know Don has done some things out in the industrial park that seem to be effective, but some of those are only effective based on the street design. But it's something we could we could look at, but I don't think we just want to look at Lakewood, like I said, because of the relationship with Oriole and that. I mean, I think we'd need to look at the entire neighborhood instead of just pushing it over a
Did
block
you
or
do
two.
that and bring recommendations?
Sure.
Yeah, and Don, would you come up? I think you have you looked at that area out there? Okay, recently.
Like on the upper end, got the tree that was in the middle already, so it's kind of slow.
Jamie, thank you for
Yes.
that information.
After the email went out, I met with Mr. Gearhart,
Okay.
out on the site, at that location. And, probably met with him for about a half hour. There's about approximately 20, 30 cars that went through. Probably about half of them that went through, they were exceeding the speed limit. Probably, I'm gonna say less than 10 did a rolling stop at the Quail Run, road. And then one person or one vehicle, just went through it completely, disregarded the traffic control device. You know, it's a long stretch. You're uphill coming from Pearl Orchard Road, you're downhill coming from Ring Road. The signage that is out there, the regulatory signage, would meet, MUTCD requirements. Looking at it, seeing what the police department has done, put the trailer out there. You know, I would, look at increasing the regulatory signage, probably increasing the number of speed limit signs, increasing the size of the stop signs, trying to bring that to a heightened awareness of what's going on there. There's some other signs that you can use, but I would need to do research on those because certainly we don't want to give the residents a sense of security as far as being out in the streets or crossing the streets. So, but you know, that's the observation that I had. And like I said, I met with him, talked to him, and looked at it for about a half hour with him. So,
Okay, and Marty and you and Terry both indicate, maybe, you know, it's been discussed a number of times if Ed and, maybe somebody, Jamie, you or Tracy and Don would get together and come back with a recommendation to us. I mean, it's 2 years old. We probably need to do something other, like you said, Ed, maybe other than just there, but so that we could address it, come back with a recommendation to us.
And maybe we could do something if there's more people headed south.
Yes.
They're using it for a cut through. Maybe we could do something up on that end that discourages them. Not discourages them, but lets them know if they want to use it for a cut through, that this is, you know, maybe a highly targeted area for speeders or, you know.
But that's the thing.
But I do know
it's
those-
downhill, so it's.
Those speed tables will make you slow down, because if you hit one when you don't slow down, you won't do it that way a second.
And I agree with you,
Well-
Terry. Signage, I don't think is not gonna help much.
in the conversation with Mr. Gearhart, though, he said that someone did blow through the stop sign at one time going from Ring Road, and that when they hit that intersection, they did go airborne.
Oh, is that right?
That's what he said. And, that was his words. So if you put a speed table there, then you might complicate that. So there are other alternatives. You can use, rumble strips. Obviously, those are indentions in the pavement. You can use both kinds. Some are raised and some are indentions, which would bring that heightened sense of awareness prior to that, intersection of Quail Run and Lakewood. So, if you're like me, when I drive, I have a sense of timing that says, okay, it takes me a certain amount of time to get from point A to point B. And whenever and the studies that I've read, that sometimes when you put traffic calming, whether it's a speed bump, speed hump, speed table, people are conditioned that says, okay, it takes me 4.5 minutes to get from Pearl Orchard Road to Ring Road on Lakewood. And they have the tendency that once they go through that, they will speed up. So, and those are based on studies I've read. And there's some pretty comprehensive studies, that have been, done in reference to traffic calming. So, I mean,
Well,
that's-
so that we can tell the neighborhood, we've addressed it again. Ed, Don, wait from the police department, maybe shortly after the first year, if you come back with a recommendation to us as to whether we need to do that specifically there or, you know, in other areas too, and if so, what? Okay,
all right, thank you.
yeah, Fair Orchard is a good example. Next item, alcohol policy, Sarah. We'll
Alcohol
drink
driving
that.
fast.
Got anything?
No, right. All right, so about guess it was 2 years ago that I had came to you all in asking for a policy change that we would be able to sell alcohol out of the park for the summer concert. And so at that time, that's when we added the original statement of malt-based beverages would be allowed to be sold at Freeman Lake during one city coordinated concert per year. Well, we are actually interested in doing a wine festival for 2017. And
The city?
yes, yes. And the purpose of this event is we would like to raise money for something that's going to benefit the parks, whether that be enhancement on the pavilions, a pavilion, whether we look at different options of the geese problem that we have out there, we don't know. You know, I would love to say it could raise thousands and thousands of dollars, but we have no idea. So we think this would be a really great way to do that and for the money to in turn be immediately turned back into the city parks. So I've suggested a change of alcohol to be sold. I didn't know if it's more appropriate to say malt-based beverages and wine, to leave it as alcohol. At this time, that's my only recommendation of an addition to what we normally do would be the wine festival. However, there have been talks since I've started of, you know, people that really enjoy events like Pops in the Park and things like that. So I think those things are always a possibility. And so, you know, I don't know with this policy if it would need to encompass, you know, if alcohol is then permitted during an event like that. You know, those are just some hypothetical thoughts. Really, my main idea and purpose for the policy request change is for the wine festival itself.
Sarah, for the benefit of those that may not be aware and us too, as the policy reads right now at Freeman Lake, only malt-based beverages during one event
Correct.
is approved. Is that that's correct? Right?
One city coordinated concert event per year.
Okay. And you are asking us to consider alcohol across the board, which would include malt-based wine and distilled spirits, right? Or to consider during city coordinated concert. So it would go from
One event
to
city coordinated
Anything
events, which
city.
is how many a year?
Well, I wasn't specific in that, just saying they would be allowed during city coordinated and or approved festivals and concerts. So that way I'm not putting us in a box.
But in that box answer, what is a city approved festival event?
Good question.
Well, if
Concert.
something like a Pops in the Park were to come back,
Sponsored
All
by
right,
somebody other than the
means
city.
that we
Correct.
just allow them to,
Correct.
which means that the city would agree to rent them Freeman Lake Park. Is that considered approved?
Event.
I haven't really thought all of that through. I was really only thinking the wine festival avenue.
And I think that's important, Marty, because I think they.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it says and or approved festivals or concerts. It's not
Right.
saying city there. It
Right,
could be
so we-
anything.
I think
Right,
we need
so
to
we could
flush that
change-
out a little bit
Yes.
more.
Okay.
So that everybody
Okay.
understands where we're at and what we're actually talking about.
So it'd be city coordinated festivals and concerts, so not and or approved, but
Well, do we rent the park? Can you come in and rent the park? If I wanted to hold a festival of my own, can I come in and rent it? Not to anybody else. Well, I know there was some talk at one time about Villa Calora possibly coming out there next year. So is that that's not considered a city coordinated event, so then would
Correct.
she then be renting the park if that were to happen?
No, she just, or she would be renting a certain area.
Area of the park. to
which is
host it.
how you do if a 5K run comes through, you kind of do a portion, right, and do a pavilion rental.
We don't block out.
Right, so there's still you can still get to the park and enjoy the park, but it's not shut down like it is for July the 4th or a city concert.
And Sarah, when you talked about in the beginning about the change, and I thought I understood, did you say just wine? Is that what you said?
Mhm.
Just wine.
But you got the
Possibly,
word alcohol here, so
Right.
you would
Right.
sell for malt beverage and wine.
yes,
But if we said this would be a temporary event,
then I think you make a choice of the three. Is that,
Per the ABC, you can, because the one in distilled spirits is one license. But if we have a policy, that would
this way
trump
we
that.
say it's malt and wine.
Like we did for the Rotary Club
Mhm.
for
But if you say
Oktoberfest.
straight
Mhm.
alcohol, then it opens it up. So
Right.
That's almost counted as temporary.
Well, I know we have all in the past been given questions about specifically Pops in the Park and wine and that it is brought in there, you know, and this kind of thing. I guess my personal opinion, I am a little reluctant and I'm willing to look into it, and I'm just speaking for myself. I'm a little reluctant to use the term alcohol in its broadest sense, which would
Sure.
include distilled spirits.
Sure.
Frequently,
Mhm.
I have a problem, I think, with
Yeah, and I don't think any of us would have a problem if Pops in the Park wanted to start back up and there was wine or something like that.
that.
But
Right,
I think,
exactly.
you know, I think the
Exactly.
alcohol word
I-
is
I
leaving
agree.
it wide open and.
Right.
Yeah.
I would too.
Sure.
But I would have, I think, some reservations about distilled
We used to
spirits.
do it illegally. It'd be nice to do it legally. Pops in the Park.
And exactly, and benefit from it, right?
Good, what, Marty?
We used to do it illegally.
Oh,
out there.
yeah.
We used to do it
Yeah.
legally.
And I think you'd have to define how we approve a festival or a concert. If
Yes,
it's not being done by the city.
Okay,
How,
sure.
what are those parameters and?
I think that opens up a whole other box that I'm not
I think, yeah,
looking to
that
open,
would be a
so.
line.
Well, if y'all remember a couple of years ago, tourism had that wakeboard
good, good.
out there that wanted to do just a VIP tent, I think
Yes,
it was.
yes.
Where they, because Budweiser was a sponsor. And we wouldn't let that.
We wouldn't let them, that's
And
right.
they left. So.
Yeah.
It's all part of this.
Sarah, what kind of deadline are you working on, or do you have a deadline, or, I mean?
With this as a Christmas gift or?
That would be nice. That'd be a great Christmas gift. Yes, definitely would like a decision before the end of the year so we can
Okay.
get going in January.
But then will you bring us back something more on your definitions here?
Yes, I'll have that too before next Monday.
Okay, okay.
Well, I have one more question.
Mhm.
For the wine festival, would it encompass the entire park or would we,
No.
we would designate an area for it? kinda like
Exactly,
do
and we would not
concerts?
shut down the entire
Okay,
park.
that's-
It
that's
would
gonna
be
be my
orange
next question.
fencing. Thank you for asking
Okay.
that. It would be orange fencing and we've actually, we're actually targeting the bandstand to Rotary that way because it's already kind of blocked off on its own and it's the prettiest part, I think, of the lake. So that way it's easier for us to orange fence that and control it,
Yeah.
especially from a police standpoint
Okay.
and charging and all those things, so.
I think from Rotary, I think out some of those guys, if they actually serve like 60 glasses, maybe.
For Oktoberfest.
Yeah, for the October.
Yeah, they sold just a little over 1,000 cups of beer and 66 cups of wine.
Really? So it wasn't really even an issue, okay.
No,
You seem to be more of a beer community.
I think so.
I think Rotary was shocked.
Yeah,
How little it sold. Yeah.
sure. I'm shocked.
Any other questions of Sarah?
Also, we're outright.
Okay, sure, you'll bring
Thanks,
us
Sarah.
that information.
Yes, sir, I will.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Lastly, code enforcement, IFO.
Wanted to make you all aware of some changes to our code enforcement board procedures that we'll bring before you all in the next month. But in 2015, the Kentucky League of Cities set up a statewide committee to look at this issue because they had heard from a number of cities across the state. I guess the common struggles we have in filing liens and dealing with abandoned properties and those kind of issues. I was fortunate enough to be asked to serve on that committee, so we had some kind of direct input to some of the problems that we were experiencing. But in the last legislative session, they passed what's known as House Bill 422 that made some changes to the code enforcement procedures. Basically, it will have three impacts on us as we're going to propose changes to you all. The first and most direct to the city is they're changing how you have to send notice. And that is that you can send notice just by regular mail, where right now we have to send everything by certified mail. So based on the number of complaints that our office alone handles, and that's not the fire department and the wastewater treatment guys who also occasionally go before the code board. But just in our department alone, that will probably save the city at least $6,000 a year. So that's I mean, for us in a smaller department and smaller budget, I mean, that's a pretty substantial impact. The other thing that we have the potential to do is if the city will set up a notification program through electronic notification to mortgage holders, then our lien priority will change. Right now, under the law, first priority on liens goes to taxes. Then after that, it's just whoever files. In most cases, it's the mortgage against the property. This change allows the city to jump ahead of the mortgage holder for our code enforcement liens. What we have to do, though, is set up an electronic notification process where we are notifying lien holders on a weekly basis of action that we've taken. And we've worked with our IT department and GIS guys already on how we can get that system set up and in place. But again, that's a big deal, because a lot of times when foreclosure action does take place, and we've got $3,000 or $4,000 worth of liens, but the bank is the major holder, and they go and they bid on the property and they bid enough to cover themselves, and then we get left, and we've been the ones who've been mowing the grass or doing something for the last 6 or 8 months while they were going through the foreclosure action. So again, that will greatly help the city. I'm not going to sit here and tell you all, go guess what, I think we're going to recover this many thousands of dollars more. I don't know what that may mean for us that way. I can tell you right now, on an annual basis, we're doing about $20,000 recovery on all the liens we're filing over the last 5 to 10 years. And that's one other thing that really we don't have to put that change in the ordinance that we'll present to you, but our liens are given a longer life. In the past, it was a 5-year limit. Now that limit goes to 10 years. Again, so that will help us potentially recover some more money for the city as those properties are sold. The final thing, though, that we will be proposing that we change in the ordinance allows the process to happen a little quicker with default hearings. Right now, if a city citation officer writes a citation, the citation tells that property owner they have 7 days to either pay the fine to the city or appeal. If they do not appeal in the 7 days, it's considered to be in default and they're guilty as charged in the citation. But the way the state law is written right now, we still have to take that default matter before the code enforcement board. They have to make a motion and take a final action, and then we can file the lien. As an example, the last 3 months of meetings before the code board, so September, October, November, all we've had is default hearings. 1 month, I think we had 15 or 20. The last 2 months, though, they've ranged between, I think we had 6 or 8 in October, and we only had 4 in the month of November. So we're having this 5-member citizen board come down to City Hall. We have a meeting, and their meeting takes 3 or 4 minutes because, again, it's in default. There's no question. All we have to do is present it to them so they can make a motion, and then they're done with their business, and then they go home. So this, and we still need to keep the code board in place because we still do have appeals. They heard some appeals this year. And again, on an annual basis, they probably do 6 appeals a year. So we will still have some meetings, but, the ones like we've had the last 2 or 3 months, I mean, we would not have to meet with the board, and then it would allow the city to go ahead and file the liens a little more timely too, instead of having to wait 2 or 3 weeks for the board meeting and then after the meeting before we can file the lien and stuff. So again, it'll speed up the process a little bit. The board has been great to work with. I don't want to give any impression that we're glad that we're going to bypass or not have to meet with them, but it does. I mean, these are 5 citizens who are giving of their time, and they, their meetings are in the evening and they take time to come down here for, like I said, 3 or 4 minutes. So, I mean, we're going to save them some of that effort. There are some other options in this new law that, in all honesty, that we talk from a staff level and are not going to make a recommendation that the council make those changes. I mean, we could set up a hearing officer. So if you talk to some other communities across the state, I mean, and they say, oh yeah, we've got a hearing officer, and you say, well, why don't we do that in Elizabethtown? We just don't see, based on the volume that we have, that that's an effective mechanism. I know Louisville and Lexington really pushed for that change in the statute, just because they have such a volume, and if they set up a hearing officer, it'll allow them to hear cases throughout the day and do things a little quicker than they have to. It's really not, or at least in our view, the staff here, it's not a needed change, because even when you have a hearing officer, you can still appeal to the board, or you still appeal to district court, you still have other final rulings. So it seemed like it was going to complicate the process, and then you have to have special training for hearing officers. And I mean, like I said, it just seemed like it was more burdensome, even though I know it may be advantageous to some communities. But if you hear about that and wonder, we're not even bringing that to you all, but I did want to mention it. So in case somebody says, well, they didn't even talk to us about a hearing officer. So, I mean, we looked at it and just don't feel it's a viable alternate. But like I said, we're going to propose some changes to our existing ordinance. And like I said, they'll allow us to take lien priority, save us some money on notice, and save us some meeting times is about the biggest impacts that we'll see.
Sounds good. You got any questions for it? Last city judge, I guess, was Art McLean. I guess.
Before my time.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything for you? Thank you, Ed. Bobby, you have anything?
Nope.
Cindy?
No, sir.
Jerry? Marty?
Absolutely not.
Tony? Charlie, you have anything? I don't have anything. Thank you all very much. We're adjourned.
What's your, I haven't read it. I know they're asking for what they're